Hello there and welcome back to Let's Play The Legend of Heroes, Trails of Cold Steel. I'm the RNGenius, but you may call me Eric, and in the last episode we talked to everybody at the university and around here, and we're going to continue with the gymnasium, talking to everybody after we finish chapter 1. Fencing club. Aha. How fortuitous. No one's here. Oh, look at those. Casper. I figured growing up on the beaches of Limare would give me a leg up on the other club members, but I was wrong. First you've got Klein, who's not just a great swimmer, but a great guy all around. And then there's Laura, who's nothing short of amazing. I'll need to put in some hours if I don't want them totally showing me up. Klein reminded me that I should always be grateful to my family, too. That guy is an inspiration in more ways than one. I'm from the countryside. Only reason I'm at Thors at all is because I got a scholarship. After my dad died, my mom had to work really hard to raise me and my younger brother and sisters right. When I got that scholarship, I decided I was going to make the most of my time here and so I could pay her back someday. My mom raised me and my siblings all by herself. I'm gonna make the most of my time here so I can repay her for everything she's done for me. Monica. I've been getting more and more used to swimming over the past few weeks. I didn't know it was gonna be so hard to swim a full 50 arch though. My current goal is to swim 50 arch without stopping. I have no idea how long it will take me to do that though. Klein appointed me as Monica's swimming coach. This is a first for me, so I'm not entirely certain how best to approach it. The only thing I know is that I have to at least try. Klein is counting on me to help Monica learn how to swim, and swim she shall. She seems to at least feel comfortable in the water now, so I have to think about what steps to take next. Boy. No one else? No one else. No one in here either. Still not allowed in this room. This is the girls' locker room. If I walked in, my death would be swift. Blissful, but swift. Okay, let's go upstairs. Bunch of nothing. Bunch of nothing. These doors are also off limits. Is anyone hiding up here? No. What's on the scoreboard? That's not a scoreboard. And that's not a blackboard either. Has Juice started to ride yet? Look at you, Juices. We've been blessed with many new recruits this year. Let us depart, Whitcomb. Today we ride for our new friends. It pleases me that we've been blessed with so many new recruits this year. Now it's my responsibility to show them the joy of riding. That Uses Alberea isn't exactly the friendliest guy in Zemuria, is he? I offered him a handshake, and he brushed me off like I didn't exist. See, this is why I can't stand most of the snooty upper-class students. Juices Alberea just could stand to learn a thing or two from Lambert. This is why I'm not fond of the upper-class students. This is a fine horse. Its build and musculature suggest it's a thoroughbred raised to race. Hey, Uses, you see me join. Hey, Juices, I see you joined the riding club. So I did. It seemed a fitting choice, given my experience taking care of horses at home. And it should serve as a decent way to pass the time after class. I'll bet they really love his winning personality. At the very least, I can be at ease here. The captain won't be pestering me to visit the salon at any rate. It should serve as a decent way to pass the time after class. No one back here. Some more non-burnable trash found its way into the burnable bins. Good grief, I wish those upper-class students would figure out how to sort out their trash properly. It seems like more than a few of the nobles here were spoiled growing up. You'd think they'd never throw out their own garbage before. They've never thrown out their own garbage before. I wish they'd learn to sort it properly. The auditorium doors are locked. Ah, Rosine. I plan on helping out at the church today, too. Knowing that even someone as insignificant as myself can be of assistance to others is a splendid feeling. It makes my efforts all feel worth it. I plan on making my way to the church soon. I hope to be of assistance to everyone today, too. We're gonna hit the library last. Oh boy. Thrasia. You're shaping up to be a fine captain, Emily. You might want to redirect that concern toward yourself, though. Our midterms are next month, after all. Oh crap, you're right, I completely forgot. The important thing now is to find the balance between our studies and club matters. It's only May. I am certain a number of issues will resolve themselves as the year progresses. Eliza keeps getting better and better, but lately it seems like she's had something on her mind. I wish I could help her out with whatever's eating her. To make matters worse, she and Ferris aren't really getting along. I don't know if I can help her out with all that stuff, but I've got to try. So, I hear Class 7's going on field studies. Must be nice to get to travel around the country. There's probably material galore out there. I'm actually pretty jealous. He's always talking about material, but what is it? It's not like they're separate from our curriculum. We work just as hard on field studies, if no harder. Either way, I'm still jealous. If you stumble across some choice material, just let me know. Second year student. Today's combat studies lesson was a very challenging one. I thought I was unused to instructor Sarah after a year of her merciless teaching, but she never fails to invent new and creative ways to torture us. Today's combat studies lesson was very challenging. Things have gotten a whole lot harder for us this year too, but we can't afford to give anything less than our best, not with midterms right around the corner. Things have gotten a whole lot tougher. Every time I pick Patrick, I think Patrick couldn't be more of an asshole. He proves me wrong. Can't you put the fear of Idios into his heart or something, Friedel? Anything to get him straightened out? No, why would I do that? It's so much more interesting when there's all this tension between you. You're pretty twisted, you know that? Let's just leave Patrick be for now. He'll come around at some point, just like you did last year. Can we just not talk about that? Doesn't have a care in the world, does she? I guess it's my job to give Patrick the attitude adjustment he needs. They tell me that we've got midterms coming up next month. The entrance exam alone was more than enough testing for one lifetime. Why are they giving us more? I'm pretty worried about Instructor Neidhart's military science exam. I mean, he's an active duty soldier in the 4th Armored Division, and his classes are just as hardcore as you would expect. Maybe I should start studying for his exams now. The students up on the 3rd floor salon never stop complaining about the food we serve. But this is the Military Academy cafeteria, not some fancy, exquisite restaurant. They do well to remember that. The students up in the 3rd floors the lawn. Never stop complaining about the food. This is not some expensive restaurant. There are a lot of upper-class students in the salon upstairs who are really full of themselves. At least they're not all like that. You can usually tell the sensible ones by whether they try to get along with commoners or not. Even if they're separate classes, the nobles and commoners both join the same clubs, so not trying is a warning sign. There are now upper-class students with good heads on their shoulders. If they don't try to get along with commoners, though, that's a red flag. Nothing new. The equipment I've been waiting ages for finally arrived. We'll be selling it before you know it. Come take a look next time you're passing by. We should have everything on display by then. The equipment I've been waiting for ages finally arrived. We'll have it ready next time. Those are the old things. Battle scopes are useful as well. I might buy some. I think I have 2 more though. Emma got into the academy on a scholarship, didn't she? Which means she's exactly the kind of person we should be protecting from your indecent hobbies. Indecent? How dare you! There's nothing indecent about the passion that these boys share. In fact, indulging in it is a vital part of a lady's youth. I knew she was reading yaoi. Sorry, I couldn't hear your argument over all your heavy breathing. Seems like more and more girls are getting into that sort of thing lately. Well, hobbies are hobbies after all. There's not much point in complaining. Oh, Fidelio, you'll never understand. There's nothing indecent about the pure passion that these boys are sharing with one another. And by extension, there's nothing indecent about my fantasies either. Yeah. This is the interesting part. Wait, where's Magias? Magias is already gone for the day. He told me he'd be here for tomorrow's strategy meeting, but he seemed a bit off. This isn't the first time either. I wonder if he's doing okay. I wonder if it's because of me. We're holding a strategy meeting tomorrow at our game. We are not going to be the upper class club if we don't put the effort in. Kenneth. This is the first time I've been in here. You have a new rod for me, perchance? Perchance? So, how's the fishing going? I bet you're catching all sorts of stuff now that you're traveling around the country for your field studies. Maybe I should join you next time. You do know they're academic studies, not some sort of fishing tour, right? You're going somewhere at the end of this month too, right? Man, I wish I could go. New rod, not the same old stuff. Brr. This one is good though. What? What? Where are they? Why is the room open?
Are you getting used to life at the academy yet?
I think I'm getting there. Well, classes have really gotten harder since the start of the year, but I feel as though I'm keeping up.
That's good to hear. By the way, tomorrow is another free day. Are you really willing to help out again, like Instructor Sarah said?
Of course, just let me know what you need my help with. Actually, if you can make a list for me, that'll make it easier to get everything done.
Thanks a lot, Rean. I really do appreciate it.
Why do you have the privilege of being voiced and I don't? Tomorrow's gonna be even tougher, but you can do it, Rean. Let's get this done. Fair enough. This seems to be the student council's prep room. What? You got all kinds of teacups, huh? Can I enter? I cannot. Noble Exclusive Salon. Nope, I will not be able to enter that place. Wanted to get pampered up. But, no wait, not happening. Fine. Alrighty. Those two girls from Class 7 always seem to be studying together. The class president there has the highest grades in her year. She's always helping her less academically gifted friend too. How nice to see someone helping her friend study. The library isn't just a great place to read books, it makes for a delightful study spot. All of these fun options in one place. You're so lucky to have a resource like this at your disposal. I love spy novels, but there's no greater thrill than a good conspiracy story. Though I admit, part of the thrill comes from the fact that I can't read them at home, as my family thinks them vulgar. This library is practically heaven for me. I can sit and read whatever I like for as long as I like. I love spy novels. Like this? That's the correct formula, yes. Well done, Fee. Woohoo. I'm as good as teaching. It's boring, but I guess I'll keep studying. I heard you found Fee napping near the old schoolhouse. Well, I suppose her carefree attitude is one of her natural charms, but thank you for reminding her to come to the study session. No problem. Well, Fee, you kept Emma waiting, so you'd better make sure to pay attention, okay? Will do. Alright, we made it to the library. Of course, there's going to be a reading session. Recommended Reading Corner. Erebonian Folklore, Volume 1. Erebonian Folklore, Volume 1. Considering the size and history of the Erebonian Empire, it should come as no surprise that it has a wealth of folklore, perhaps more than any other nation on the continent. This is the first in a series of 3 books that will introduce a small number of the legends and traditions in Erebonia. It is my wish that this series will stimulate new interest in the rich history and mythology of this great nation. Animism. Animism is a religious belief native to the land of Erebonia, disconnected from the teachings of the Zeptian Church. There is no single type of animism. Animism. Some animists believe that objects in the natural world have a spirit, while others emphasize the reverence of one's ancestors. The animist traditions of the past continue to live on in a number of ways in Erebonia, while the summer festival being just one. While animism may be disconnected from the doctrine of the Zeptian Church, it does not specifically refute the Church's teachings, and in many regions, animists' traditions have been incorporated into the beliefs of the Zeptian Church. Many animists have thus been converted to worshipping the goddess Idios while retaining their traditional beliefs. Furthermore, the people of the Nord Highlands to the northeast of the Empire revere the winds as a spirit, and many share a fundamental aspect of their religious outlook with the people of Erebonia. Fiend, an evil creature that differs from the monsters that we know. Most are said to cause harm to humans, and while they are fundamentally similar to the devils, which appear in the teachings of the Zeptian Church, the existence of neither fiends nor devils has been proven. Fairies are inhabitants of another world, separate from both spirits and fiends. Descriptions of them vary amongst different traditions. Some liken them to young winged girls, while others characterize them as small people. A number of believers also portray them as being represented by small animals. One thing they all have in common, however, is that they enjoy pulling pranks on people. J. Arendt. Read Erebonian Folklore, Volume 1. Contents were added to book notes. Fair enough. Now, we are going to read the Imperial Chronicle, Issue 2. Politics. The Imperial Provincial Council meets. The Imperial Provincial Council, made up of the 4 great houses and other key nobles, met recently in Koizen Province's Berea Heart City. Reports suggest that the heads of each of the 4 great houses were in attendance and that countermeasures against the reformist factions were discussed. Provincial Council representatives' statement: the ones responsible for upholding the nation's traditions and for making this great country what it is today are we nobles. The so-called reformists may think they know how to govern Erebonia, but are they really thinking of the next 200 or 300 years? Those who lack self-respect and can only think of practical concerns rather than the heritage and culture of this nation have no business talking about how to run it. International riot in Crossbell. Reports suggest that a riot took place in the Crossbell state to the east. The mob struck in the middle of the night, firing machine guns on the city's streets. It's believed that the riot was orchestrated by a religious cult, and the Crossbell police are continuing to investigate the matter. Fortunately, the IBC International Bank of Crossbell was unaffected and resumed normal operations the next day. Those associated with the bank can rest easy. Interesting. I'll remember this. There is a game that is connected to the story in Crossbell. Also a Trails game that has not yet been translated into the English language, but it's happening at the same time as Cold Steel 1. So this is probably an incident that happens in that game as well that we are going to experience from a little closer than, 1,000 kilometers away. Economy. Chancellor Osborne visits Uri SEZ. Recently, Chancellor Osborne paid an unexpected visit to the Western Uri Special Economic Zone, which has continued to show remarkable economic growth in recent years. It is believed that he met with the region's representative to discuss their respective visions for the future. Those present were said to be awestruck by the Chancellor's dynamism and political skill. Incident. Phantom Thief B returns to Erebonia. The infamous criminal Phantom Thief B, who once sowed chaos across the Erebonian Empire, has returned. If reports are to be believed, does the elusive outlaw intend to cause yet more trouble here in the Empire? Having been outmaneuvered by him on countless occasions in the past, the Heimdallr military police aren't taking any chances and are on increased alert. So that was Phantom Thief B, huh? The one who called Instructor Sarah Purple Lightning. Must have been. Publicity, a revolution in fishing gear. The Lake Lord Company has added a new product to its lineup, the Lake Lord Star. This groundbreaking rod was created using a brand new material, making it stronger than ever before. Those interested should contact their local dealer for availability. Oh man, he didn't have it for me. Who's my local dealer? Alright, we're gonna be reading out the 3rd chapter of Red Moon Rose as well, but I'll have to prepare a glass of water for me. We left off with Rose having been introduced, and our main character, or our protagonist in this book series, joining her, and he received a silver sword or silver dagger from her to be able to fend off against the ghouls that the vampire creates. Chapter 3, Foreboding. The next morning, Alphonse found himself in his commanding officer's Gerard's office. He had come to request permission to independently investigate the vampire murders. Gerard scratched his head before giving Alphonse a questioning look, his eyes filled with a kind of vitality one would expect from a much younger man. "You want to pursue that case all on your own?" Alphonse cleared his throat nervously. He was well aware that what he was asking was completely unreasonable. Not on my own, a civilian has agreed to help me conduct my investigation. The two of us will be working together. It sounded pretty weak to him, but Rose had been adamant that they kept the truth of the matter to themselves. It wouldn't be to the benefit of society for the existence of vampires to become widely known, she had insisted. As such, trying to arrange for us to be able to investigate the murders by ourselves, without interruption. Aside from a cool farewell for now, those had been her last words before disappearing into the night. And what she said made sense. There was simply no way that Gerard would believe that vampires existed, even if it was his surrogate son trying to persuade him. After all, despite seeing a ghoul with his very own eyes, part of Alphonse still wanted to believe that it had all been a dream. To compound the problem further, for reasons that Alphonse wasn't privy to, Rose seemed opposed to anything other than investigating the matter covertly. As such, her joining the team formed to officially investigate the murders was off the table. Alphonse was therefore left with no choice but to propose that the two of them investigate together in secret. Alphonse was not surprised, then, to see Gerard's less than willing expression. Listen, Al, as your guardian, I've got a responsibility to look after you. That's why I want to raise you to be a fine soldier, and why I don't want you putting your life in danger for no good reason. Alphonse flushed. He had already been removed from the team investigating the murders, as well as taken off night patrol duty. Gerard was well aware of his fixation with the case. That was exactly why he was afraid that Alphonse might end up going too far in his attempts to solve it and get injured, or worse. Gerard, sir, I understand exactly what you're saying, what you're trying to say, and I appreciate your concern, but... Seeing Alphonse's determination, Gerard hesitated. The boy standing before him was calm with clear eyes, where previously there had been recklessness. Now previously there had been recklessness, now purpose and resolve seemed to rule. After a lengthy silence, he let out a sigh of resignation. You really do take after your father. He smiled fondly, but quickly switched to his official, commanding officer voice. I expect you to give your utmost to successfully solving the mystery behind these murders. However, I will approve of this mission only on the condition that you report daily on the results of your investigation. Gerard, Alphonse almost responded in his usual casual tone, but caught himself just in time. He coughed, cleared his throat, and stood to attention. Gerard chuckled. Just be sure not to put yourself needlessly in danger, understood? If anything happens, inform me immediately. Yes, sir! Alphonse gave a deep bow, grateful for his guardian's kindness. I see that everything went well. That is good news. The two of them were in the corner of the shopping district where the first victim of the vampire murders had been found. It was the middle of the day, but the alleyway in which they stood was gloomy and draped in shadows by the looming buildings that surrounded it. The second he had stepped into the narrow passageway, Rose had appeared out of nowhere, just like the previous day. Because the place where Alphonse had been attacked by the ghoul the previous night was currently under investigation by the Gerard team, they thought it best to steer clear of it for the rest of the day. As such, they had decided to examine the scene of an earlier murder instead. Unlike the previous night, Rose had neither her coat nor her sword with her. Instead, she wore a simple dress in the local style. Anyone seeing her for the first time wouldn't be able to tell that she was anything more than a perfectly ordinary girl. According to Rose, neither vampires nor ghouls were able to operate in daylight, and thus battle-ready wear was unnecessary. Everyday clothing also had the benefit of allaying suspicion by blending in, she said. It was fine logic in theory, but with Alphonse still garbed in his military uniform, they made for an unusual pairing. As such, Alphonse couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief when he realized how few people were in the surrounding area. The scene of the first murder still had a solemn air about it. Alphonse set about scouring the area, and as he mused over the case details involving the victim, a question came to mind. Thinking about it, I never heard about any of the earlier victims turning into ghouls. Is that because you've been defeating them? Rose shook her head. No, in previous cases I was able to purify the bodies with thaumaturgy before they turned into ghouls. I would rather not harm the bodies of the deceased if I can help it. Oh, no. Thaumaturgy, as Rose explained it, was the collective name for special techniques used by a small number of people belonging to the Zeptian Church. The power of thaumaturgy was also apparently the reason why Rose's rapier and Alphonse's short sword were capable of defeating ghouls and vampires. Curious, Alphonse asked Rose if she was connected to the church, to which she responded, "Feel free to think of it that way." He itched to probe her more on the subject, but she began explaining the particulars about ghouls, so he let it drop. Since the murders had started, it seemed that the time it took for a corpse to turn into a ghoul was decreasing with every kill. Alphonse's encounter with a ghoul the previous night was the first occasion that she had been unable to purify the victim in time. As such, she had been left with no choice but to fight. Still, that possibility was well within my expectations. It's not the first time it has happened after all. That someone like yourself would appear and try to get involved certainly wasn't, however, Rose said with a giggle, causing Alphonse's ear to turn pink at the tips. Anyway, he said, crouching down to inspect the ground level, "Have you managed to gather anything about the culprit from your previous investigations?" Rose nodded. "Judging by the bite marks left on the victims, I believe that the vampire is likely male. Furthermore, despite victims being found all across the city, the bite marks look the same as one another. That suggests the work of a single vampire. Beyond that, however..." Rose fell silent. "Is something bothering you?" Alphonse asked without thinking. "Yes, actually. It may be possible that the vampire lurking in the city is..." She stopped mid-sentence. Her gaze was focused on something behind Alphonse. Turning around, he saw a young man in a military uniform, much like himself. It was someone he knew. "Elroy, what are you doing here?" "I was about to ask you the same thing," the other man grumbled. Elroy was a fellow member of the Gerard team who had joined around the same time as Alphonse did. That combined with the two being roughly the same age, one might expect them to get along very well, but in reality they usually ended up arguing about everything. It had been like that for almost as long as Alphonse had known him. "I'd heard you'd formed a separate team to check up on the murders, but I had no idea that it was just a pretext to be meeting a woman during working hours," Elroy sneered. Alphonse stifled his annoyance. At least it seemed as if the other man hadn't overheard their earlier conversation. Clearing his throat, Alphonse said evenly, "She's a civilian who's assisting with my investigation, so knock it off. And you, what are you doing here?" "Nothing in particular. I just happened to be passing by. We've got to patrol a much wider area now, thanks to all this vampire nonsense." Alphonse stood and gave him a cold look. "Watch what you're saying. People in this area have lost family and friends because of these murders." Elroy snorted and cast an uncaring glance at the spot where the first victim had been found. "Huh, I mean, seriously? Vampire murders? We are supposed to be the Imperial Army, not a bunch of country bracers. Are we seriously considering the possibility that fairy tale creatures like that exist? And besides, what kind of idiot goes out at night when there's a serial killer on the loose? And we're asking for it, if you ask me. People need to stay in their damned houses and stop making more work for us. You son of a..." Enraged by the sheer callousness of Elroy's words, Alphonse started towards him, or tried to rather. Strong, unyielding fingers held him by the arm. Completely expressionless and without so much as a glance to Elroy, Rose whispered, "Arguing with him serves no purpose. That time would be better spent investigating." She spoke calmly, but her words were sharp and dismissive. What she said was right though, and hearing it was enough for Alphonse to cool his temper. As she said, they had more important things to be doing. He had sworn that he would solve these murders and put the past behind him, and that needed to be his foremost priority. He took a deep breath to regain his composure. The reassuring weight of the silver sword hidden in his uniform further reminded him of what he needed to do. Watching them, Elroy gave a bored, derisive laugh. "Oh, and civilian helper or whatever you are, don't you go wandering around at night either. The last thing the army needs is more dead bodies to clear up." And with a mocking wave, he left them. After their inspection of the first crime scene, Alphonse and Rose spent the remainder of the day scrutinizing the scenes of the second and the third murders. But in the end, their search yielded no fruit. After reporting their progress to Gerard, he made his way to the Allegria, where he had promised to meet Rose to discuss how they would proceed with their investigation. The city around him was bathed in the orange glow of the setting sun when Alphonse finally stepped into the sparsely populated tavern. He found Rose sitting at a table near one of the windows. Once again, she was wearing the navy coat from their first meeting. It seemed safe to assume that the rapier she used that night was inside it, too. "Evening," she called out to him. "I was expecting you to be here sooner." Alphonse didn't reply. He was too busy staring at the girl sitting opposite to her. "What's wrong, Luca?" Luca turned at the sound of her name, eyes so wide and moist that tears threatened to fall at any moment. "Alfie, just what is this woman to you?" "What?" Perplexed, he looked over in Rose's direction, as if seeking an explanation. Rose favored him with a bland expression. "All I did was walk into this tavern and state I would like an out-of-the-way table to discuss the future with Al." Oh, boy. Nice. "And she was pressing me with endless questions ever since." She sighed and shrugged her shoulders as if she understood the situation no better than Alphonse did. Seeing this, he let out an ever greater sigh. Before Luca could launch into another interrogation, Alphonse set about explaining Rose's role as a civilian helper, aiding an army investigation, and after several reassurances that he was eventually be able to clear up the misunderstanding, Luca's relief seemed to fill her with renewed energy. Cheerfully, she bounded up from their table and made her way into the back of the tavern again. With her departure, so too left the gazes of the other curious and amused patrons. Rose and Alphonse bent to discussing their investigation. Vampires, Rose elaborated, were only able to use their powers at night. During the day, they were no different from ordinary humans. Unfortunately, this meant that even if they were to encounter one, neither of them would be able to tell. If they hoped to end the murders, they would first need to find some kind of clue as to the vampire's true identity. At one point during the conversation, Alphonse went pale at the thought that they might have to exhume the corpses of previous victims in order to reinvestigate them, but Rose assured him that would not be necessary. To his great relief, she had already checked them thoroughly for clues. Even that gruesome task had yielded little more information than the similarities between the bite marks, though. Their vampire foe was a cunning one. The number of bodies and lack of clues all pointed towards a careful killer who more than likely was living right there among them as an ordinary human. After working their way through the simple meal that Luca brought them, Rose casually glanced over to the back of the tavern. "You seem rather close to that girl," she murmured. It took a few moments for Alphonse to realize who Rose was referring to. "Yeah, I suppose you could say that. I've known her for 10 years now, after all." He had first met Luca when he was brought to Heimdallr by Gerard. Initially, he had stayed in a house near the tavern, and being brought by it often, the two of them quickly became friends. As an orphan, Luca's support over the years meant more to him than words could express. Telling Rose all of this, Alphonse could feel his cheeks heating. He began fidgeting awkwardly. I'm a little envious," Rose said. As she spoke, Alphonse noticed a change in her expression and tone. Usually, she said things sharply with an air of cool detachment. Her face also rarely betrayed her inner thoughts. Now, though, he thought he caught a hint of loneliness. Unable to let this pass unnoticed, Alphonse opened his mouth to comment. Suddenly, Rose jumped up out of her seat. Her chair fell to the ground with a crash. Once again, the two of them became the subject of a room full of gazes, but she paid that fact no mind and stared out of the window, her eyes open wide. "What is it? What's wrong?" Alphonse whispered loudly. "It's nearby. I can sense it." "It? What do you mean?" "The vampire," she hissed. No sooner had she said it, she raced over to the tavern's owner, who was busy at the back of the building. Alphonse chased after her. He had never seen her in such a panicked state before. "Where's the young lady who was here earlier?" Rose asked the puzzled tavern owner, who didn't appear to have any idea who she was referring to. It was then that Alphonse realized that he didn't see Luca anywhere, and hadn't seen her since she brought them their food a half hour before. After telling this to the owner, he finally seemed to realize what he was being asked. "Now that you mention it, I would have expected her to be back by now. I asked her to run an errand over at the grocery store opposite here." Alphonse and Rose exchanged a glance, and instantly understood what the other was thinking. Overcome with a sense of great foreboding, the two of them rushed out of the shop without saying a word. Oh boy, that doesn't bode well for Luca, does it now? Alright. But it does bode well for the end of this episode. For the moment, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope I'll see you in the next episode as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Until then, toodles!